You are a cultural pioneer, or as I'd like to say, a culture-neer. You're daring to go where others aren't willing to go. The unknown doesn't scare you, it intrigues you. You're not satisfied with the status quo. Business as usual is not in your DNA. You're done with doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You're an explorer at heart and a trendsetter by nature. You were born with purpose, called to lead, destined to make a difference. You are a Culture-Neer. Hey, welcome back to the Culture-Neer Podcast, where we talk servant leadership, healthy culture, success, and legacy. I'm your host, Terry Gwaltney, and today we're going to discuss how great leaders fix a failing culture. Now, don't tune out. You may say, well, there's nothing wrong with my culture. This is really not for me. There's not a perfect culture. It's like there's not perfect people. And what's great today could be a challenge tomorrow. Culture is one of those things that you have to nurture. It's almost like your health, or it's like gardening. It requires constant attention. So if you're listening today, there's going to be benefit for wherever you're at whatever season in your organization. It's important because your culture matters, guys, a whole lot more than what you think. So what culture isn't? Maybe we should start there. Well, it's not just a rec room at work. It's not just a mission statement on the wall. And it's not just words you say to new people that you're onboarding. Toxic culture, it doesn't just explode in one day. It erodes very silently. This is the importance of what we're talking about, because if you don't pay attention, you show up one day and it's like, what in the world happened? I've got 2 people that I need to fire because they can't get along. I just heard about 3 other things that are happening, that I'm going to have to deal with. And I don't know if these people are going to survive it. I realized what a morale issue that I had. And then suddenly you have something that is affecting your bottom line. It's affecting your retention. It's affecting your recruiting, every aspect of your business. Why? Because the culture wasn't healthy. And because you didn't pay attention to it for a long period of time, you just dealt with it when the symptoms just kind of blew out of proportion. You've got a lot of cleanup to do. And in a lot of cases, some of these people won't survive that. There will be casualties. And so you have to pay attention to the culture on an ongoing basis. So what does it look like when it's eroding silently? What are you talking about? Well, it could simply be a missed conversation. It could be a tolerated compromise. In other words, there's some situations where you hear that, it's like, I'm going to have to deal with that. And then you get busy with everything else. I'm going to deal with that at the right time. And then a week goes by. It's like, well, I should have dealt with that. But I'm so far on the other side of it, I think I'm just going to leave it alone. If it comes up again, I'll deal with it then. If you take that approach to managing your culture, those are the things that slowly begin to erode away very silently. But then they begin to show up in big ways. And when they show up in big ways, they usually come with big challenges. Maybe it's an ignored value. Like, the way that person acted today, that was outside of our value system. That has to be dealt with. If you let that slide under the rug and you don't deal with that, again, it's one of those factors that begins to erode away silently at your culture. It all takes a start very slow, and it's a quiet decay, and I think that's the danger. As leaders, guys, we are the guardians of the culture. I think if I had to boil down all the things that I do in our organizations, for me, I feel like the greatest weight of responsibility is that I am guarding the culture. How am I guarding the culture? The 2 biggest ways that come to mind is I'm guarding the culture by who I choose to join the team. So my selection process of who I'm adding to our culture is one of the highest priorities and responsibilities that I think that I have. The other side of that, almost a bookend to that conversation, is who we decide needs to leave or who you decide gets to stay. Because see, everybody's not going to do their part to own the responsibility, and sometimes catering to one person, you do at the risk of detriment to your entire team. And those can be hard conversations. We're filming this podcast today, and I literally today had to let a person go. That's one of the hardest things that I have to do. We don't take that lightly. It's a lot of responsibility. But sometimes One door has to close for a person in order for the right door to open for them. People that don't work out, that aren't great fits, don't mean they're not great people. You have to have a great fit and a great person in your culture if you're wanting an above average culture. You constantly have to nurture it. You constantly have to take care of it, much like a baby. At some point, it'll grow, it'll be more mature, and it can handle a couple more shots. But you're never going to get away from nurturing it. You're never going to get away from paying close attention to it. The moment you do, problems are going to rise up. So how do we do that? How do we guard that culture? Well, what you tolerate in your culture becomes the standard of the culture. There may be things right now that you go home and like, I don't like this about my own company. I don't like this about my own organization. I don't like this particular thing on my own team. Then why have you tolerated it? Because that now become the standard. Now you have to go work to begin to change that. You can reinforce something by constantly looking the other way. You can reinforce something with positive affirmation and really calling somebody out and encouraging them because they did the right thing. Either way, you're reinforcing, and what you reinforce, again, will be what gets repeated over and over and over again. This is not difficult from the standpoint of being able to diagnose your culture. If you're paying for people, listen, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a CEO, if you're in any kind of management position where people are reporting to you and you're responsible to pay them or responsible to the company for the pay that they receive, well, why would you tolerate a culture that is not helping you win, that's causing you more stress, that you go home and don't even want to be a part of? We need to figure out a way to fix these things. So let me ask you this. What are you currently tolerating that's undermining your team's health? Think about that. I'm going to give you several questions today. You're going to want to listen to this probably more than one time because you're going to want to write a few of these things down. That's how you're going to pull the most out of this. What are you currently tolerating that's undermining your team's health? Think about it. Probably won't have to think very long. So if we're honest, guys, we're called to lead when things are good. We're also called to lead when things are bad. Sometimes it's easy to run with it when things are good. No confrontation, no awkwardness, no personnel issues. But I would dare say sometimes leading in bad situations is where leaders can shine the most and where they're probably needed the most. Because it's in those situations you have to navigate very strategically, very carefully, and you need to do it without great emotion. Your people deserve to be able to follow someone that is stable. And the moment they can't follow you because you're unstable, you're going to begin to lose trust. You're going to begin to lose their confidence. And what will happen over a period of time is that they will become reserved in the amount of chance and risk they're willing to take, which will stifle your innovation at your company. The reward won't be worth the risk for how they feel like they will be treated or how you're going to react. Super, super important if you want to encourage innovation and creativity within your organization. So reviving a culture really starts with courageous conversations, not just convenience. So we don't need more comfort in our culture. What we need is more consistency. What we need is more clarity. And really what we need is more conviction in the things that we say are important to us. That can start with the values you have in your organization. So here's the bottom line. You cannot win a building team on a broken foundation. I've got a good friend right now that just had his home demolished with a tornado. And he's dealing with an insurance company right now. His house is going to have to be completely tore down. It was a tragic situation. It was his dream home. He's raised his kids there. And he's got one structural engineer that says his basement is not safe to build on. So I would not put a new house on it. Then he has an adjuster that has stepped onto the scene like, it's going to be fine. We're going to pay for the house, but we're not going to pay for the basement. So he's in that situation in his home. He doesn't want to invest $300,000 or $400,000 of a new home built on a faulty foundation that may fail. And so he's in the throes of having to fight that out. And the right thing to do is completely tear out the foundation and start over again. Guys, hopefully, if you're paying attention today, you won't have to go all the way down and start over with the foundation. But can I promise you something? You can't afford to build an organization that is built on a broken foundation. You're going to have to sometimes go back and revisit, what is the mission? What is the vision? What is the core values? Who can I take along with me? And maybe I need to slow the growth because I don't want to scale the current culture that I have, spend more time in getting it healthy, and then begin to try to scale it again. So what we're talking about today is very practical stuff. So let me give you 7 big bullet points to kind of do a cultural audit of your own organization. And guys, be honest. This is not a test you're taking to impress somebody else about how well you did. This is an assessment to figure out where you're at, so you figure out how far you need to go. So you can figure out where you're at, that you can keep doing, getting the results you want, and the areas that you really need to improve that could dramatically change your bottom line, dramatically change the retention of people not leaving and wanting to stay, and dramatically change the line of people that are knocking on the door that want to come to work for you because of the people that are there telling them how great a place it is to work. So let's start. Here's number 1, core values check. Do people actually know your values on your team? In other words, not just memorize them, but are they living them? That's your first assessment. Your core values shouldn't be something you stole from somebody else because you knew you needed a set of core values. Your core values should be those things like, these are the non-negotiables of how we do business. We do business around here with integrity, and we don't tolerate dishonesty. And so don't make a decision because it saves us money and it requires us to be unethical or dishonest. That's a core value that we're not willing to violate. So what are those core values for you? It's not enough for your team to be able to tell you when you call them out on the carpet, like, give me the 7 core values of our company. The question is, are they living them? When it comes decision time and you're not there, in your absence, are they making the same decisions using your core values as a filter to come to the conclusion? Until you get your team to that point, you can't scale your culture or your business effectively. It's just the bottom line. So think about this. Can you name a moment last week where you saw your core values in action amongst your team? If you didn't, you either need to pay closer attention or you need to move this up in importance. You need to look to catch your people doing something right. And if you can't catch them doing something right, then it tells you where you need to start working. So there's your first thing. Second, is your culture safe to speak up in? This is going to be one of the most important things we talk about out of these 7. Have you created a culture that is safe for your people to feel like they can speak up in? So a culture that's open, that means where people feel safe to speak, share an idea, share a concern, or even push back on a plan. I say, well, I'm the ones that pay people around here and I expect them to do what I tell them to do. I understand what you're saying, and there may come a point where you're going to have to ask people to do it your way, and they think their way's better, and if you are paying them, then that is your prerogative. But there is a morale issue, and you should be smart enough to collaboratively take and want to pull feedback from the people that are on your team, because there should be a reason why you hired them in their particular field. They should be able to add something to you, whether that be in the form of advice or a skill set or just experience maybe that you don't have. And you want to be able to pull from the value from that. So super important that you create an environment where they don't want to just agree with you all the time. They want to give you the options so you can see both sides. The decision is still yours, but they're not very valuable to you if they're not showing you both sides of the coin, so you have both pieces objectively to understand what my risk is, what my potential reward is, and you're pulling for that. You're paying for their experience, so it would be wise at least to listen to that experience. Does that make sense? So honest means truth isn't sugar-coated or avoided to protect egos. So are you creating that environment where people can be honest? That is super important. Sometimes we avoid people to protect their egos. That's not what we're talking about. That is not an open environment. That is not a safe place to speak up. Is your environment respectful? So in other words, even when there's hard conversations that are delivered in the right way, that there's not blame or shame. Everybody's not going to agree with you all the time. You need a diverse set of opinions, because in your business, you're serving a diverse set of people. Whether you're selling a product or you're serving someone in a church or a nonprofit, I promise you, every personality is not the same. Every skin color is not the same. Every ethnicity is not the same. Every gender is not the same. And you need that diversity to make the best decision for your entire organization. So here's a cultural red flag that maybe your culture is not as safe as you think it is. If a team member only tells you what you want to hear, that's a red flag. If they avoid giving feedback up the chain, in other words, they just gossip about it amongst their peers, but they never report anything that's challenging or wrong or troubling to their report, you don't have communication. You have compliance. There's a big difference. You need healthy communication. It's the lifeblood of your organization. That communication is directly linked to how healthy your culture is. If you don't have that, you have compliance, which means you don't have a competitive advantage anymore. You need to ask yourself, am I letting small frustrations fester within my organization? That's important because that's how toxicity in a culture starts. It's a broken process that no one wants to bring up. Why don't they want to bring it up? They don't feel safe to bring it up. I don't want to be the guy that's on the list. I don't want to be the guy that feels like he's the odd man out. I don't want to be blackballed. I don't want to be talked about behind my back. All those things, super important. Unspoken tension doesn't say small. It grows. Over time, those small frustrations become gossip behind closed doors in your organization. They become resentment towards leadership. They lead to emotional disengagement. And eventually, they'll end up in turnover. You will have a retention problem where people are always going out the back door. Maybe you're saying, like, what do we do as a leader if that's what I see in my organization? Well, the very first thing is you need to model the behavior that you want first. Be the first to speak the hard truth. So I think timing is important when you have these conversations, but I also think timeliness is important. Everything that somebody does shouldn't be pointed out and corrected in front of everybody. There's a time for that. But most of the time, you're praising publicly, you're correcting privately, unless an extreme situation demands otherwise. The timeliness of that, though, think about parenting. If one of your kids just really screw up and do something that they know that there should be a consequence for, and then you wait 3 weeks when it's convenient for you to bring that back up, you've not done anybody a service in that scenario. The quicker you can respond to that situation, the better chances you have of changing a behavior problem, because they associate the consequence with the choice. And hopefully, consistently done, the choice will become in alignment with the vision, in that case of the house, of the parents, but in an organization with the vision and the mission of the organization itself. Super important. So you need to address issues early when you hear about them. I know that's one thing, we tend to, in the past in our organization, that we believe in people almost to a fault. Like, okay, well, we're going to give them another chance. Sometimes giving people another chance is not what they need. Sometimes what they need is a consequence, because somebody has empowered them to get to this point to where they continue to make bad choices. It could be a discipline issue. It could be a variety of different things. Sometimes they need a consequence. So they're faced with a decision. Am I going to change this, or am I going to continue down this path and just add another place that I've worked to my long list of places on my resume? So it's super important. You need to also equip your managers. Sometimes the reason your people are allowing some of this stuff to happen and it's leading to this environment that people won't speak up is because the people that are leading your people haven't been mentored properly, haven't been exposed to maybe the proper training. So, and I know many mid-level leaders, they avoid tough conversations because they feel like they don't understand how to handle it. They feel undertrained. Guys, give them the tools, give them the framework, and it's probably the most important thing. The last thing any manager wants to do is have to have an awkward conversation and then feel like they didn't get backed up by their direct report. Fourth thing that I would say is recognition and celebration. Guys, this is huge if you're going through your assessment. I mean, it's literally like the fuel for belonging and motivation for your team. So when people feel seen and valued, they're going to bring their best. That's why this is so important. When they feel invisible or taken for granted, they're slowly going to start to disengage. Here's the problem, even if they stay on the payroll. So now I'm paying somebody for a subpar performance, and many times it's because I haven't made them feel like they're seen or valued. You ever heard somebody leave one place and they come to another place? Yeah, they just treat everybody like a number. It was so corporate over there. What they're really saying is, I didn't feel like I was seen. I didn't feel like I was valued. I didn't feel like I was treated like a person. I just felt like I was kind of used for whatever my skill was. That does not build morale. It doesn't build high engagement, and it doesn't help with the culture at all. And I think many times, guys, too often as leaders, we're focused on fixing what's wrong, and we forget to celebrate what's right. And over time, this creates a performance-driven culture where people just feel used, but they don't feel honored. So you may have a short-term win, but you end up having a long-term loss because people won't stay in that environment if they have an option, because they want to feel valued, and that's what fuels them to want to give their best. So it fuels them to get up instead of dreading to go into work Monday morning, wanting to come to work on a Monday morning. So here's some questions you can kind of reflect on. Think about this from your organization standpoint. Are you pausing to celebrate the small wins? Or are you just recognizing the big achievements? Now only you can answer this. The daily consistency and the quiet progress is what makes the difference over the long haul. Are celebrations baked in to the rhythm of your team, or are they reactive and rare? In other words, have you built a system that recognizes people? I'll give you a practical example. We do something in our organization called your Day 365. It's almost like a birthday for your work anniversary. So can I tell you that the people that work for you know that, hey, I've been here 5 years. You may not know that because there's 50 people there, but they know that. You may not know everybody's birthday, but I bet you haven't forgot yours. And that's the way your employees are. And so we bake that in to, we just know that, hey, on Day 365, we're going to give a certificate. The certificate is not really what matters. The certificate is we're taking a moment to say, you know what? We appreciate the year of service that you've given here. And then we'll ask them, tell us just quickly in 5 minutes about your journey. And then they'll talk about what it's been like working in the organization. And you think that doesn't matter? Not too long ago that somebody couldn't be in a meeting, and so we didn't give it to them on the proper time. They were asking us, hey, I haven't got my certificate. Well, that certificate looks like the last 3 they've got. Why do you think that was important? What they were really saying is, I really want my moment in front of my peers, and I really want to hear you're doing a good job. That's what that certificate really means. So what's baked into your organization to where it's just automatic? I have pre-planned how I'm going to add value and cause people to be seen in my organization. Maybe it's their birthday. Maybe it's their anniversary. I mean, it could be a variety of things, but that needs to be intentional. It just happens every time. Otherwise, it's that, reactive plan, like nobody has a plan, we should do something, but then we pull something off at the last minute and it's really subpar and it really didn't send the right message. Or, hey, I got you that, we just wanted to give you this for your birthday. We know we missed it by 4 days. It doesn't land the same way. So work that into your process. Small wins stacked together end up being big momentum, but only if you take time to notice them. Don't just wait for results. Affirm effort. This is a big one, guys. Sometimes you just need to affirm the effort, the growth, and the character that they're developing along the way. Maybe it isn't perfect yet, but maybe it's 20% better than what it was 2 weeks ago. I think that's valuable enough. You got to point that out. Hey, I just noticed you're really putting some effort here. I mean, there's a noticeable difference from the last time that we sat down in this eval. And I want to applaud you for that. Now, we still have a ways to go, but this is encouragement, hopefully for you, that you can do this because you've already came so far. Man, that's intentional. You're noticing somebody, you're adding value, and I'm pouring gas on them to continue to do what you need them to do and really what they want to do, because they want to hear good job. And you're giving them the keys to be able to do that. Ask yourself this question. do people feel seen and appreciated for who they are and not just what they do? Yeah, we're going a little deeper. Do people in your organization feel seen and appreciated for who they are, not just what they do? That's important. That also takes you taking a little bit more time intentionally. So now I'm not just bragging on the job you did that I paid you to do, that we both agreed you were going to do, and you're doing it at a performance level that's allowing you to keep your job, and I'm bragging on you about that. And there's a place for that, and I need to do that, and we're both kind of keeping our end of the bargain. But in addition to that, are you adding, you know what, man, I appreciate that your load's been super heavy, and I haven't heard you complain about that. I also haven't seen you come in here with a bad attitude, and I know we've worked 9 days straight and 3 nights that were really, really long. Just that's the season we're in. I get it, and I know you get it, but it doesn't make it any easier. That makes people feel seen and appreciated. It just takes your culture to another level.
Thank you for joining us on Culture-Neer, where every episode is a step forward on your leadership journey. We hope today's conversation sparked new insights and added real value to your life, empowering you to lead with greater strength and purpose. If you enjoyed what you heard, please connect with us. Follow our Facebook and Instagram pages, subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content, and give us a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Your support helps us grow our community and continue delivering conversations that matter. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep striving, keep leading, and keep inspiring.